It was the final day of the season, but there was still an awful lot at stake. Not least the Eredivisie title with Ajax and PSV just a point apart. 5 sides were also fighting for the last 2 European playoff places. All the action and all the goals coming up over the next hour. We kick off with leaders PSV, who'd taken over at the top after Ajax's midweek draw at Groningen and their own victory at home to Heracles. So a win in Rotterdam would see them retain the title they won last season. Ivan Perisic had their first effort on 5 minutes, blocked on the line by former PSV defender Patrick van Aanholt, who was part of their successful squad a year ago. Coach Peter Bos picked the same 11 that had earned them a 6th straight win last time out, to put them on the verge of the title. Malik Tillman scored twice in that game. He was denied the opener by a smart stop from Nicolo. It seemed only a matter of time before PSV would score. Sparta were on the back foot right from the off, and the visitors' quick combinations were too quick for them. Shortly before the hour, they did score, just as word was filtering around the stadium that Ajax had done so too. Olivier Boscali measuring this cross, where Ivan Perisic stooped at the far post to put them in front. He's been an important and an experienced presence all season, setting standards both on and off the pitch. And since February, he's been a regular provider of goals too. This, a 7th in the last 7 games. Before this season, a serious knee injury looked to be slowing him down, and he was at a career crossroads, but bringing him in has been one of PSV's best bits of recent business. He came close to another goal, his shot brushing the fingertips of Ole on the way through. Sparta's response didn't arrive till later in the half, a header just wide from Tobias Larsson. Their coach, Moni Steiner, had been frustrated in the build-up, had some views in the media that this was a foregone conclusion. Somehow they were just turning up to get beaten, but there was no doubt they were struggling to affect the game. They avoided falling further behind when Van Aanholt blocked another Perisic shot on the line. This time using the top of his arm, but it was high enough up that the referee didn't rule it as handball. The second goal, which had long looked likely, seemed to draw closer when PSV were awarded a penalty straight after the restart. Saeed Bakari took a risk bringing the ball out, and Tillman took a tumble, which did pay off, catching Mike Erdhausen, and this time they got a penalty. However, Sedo Husubek's decision was then questioned by the VAR, who called him over to take a look, and it became clear PSV's number 7 had initiated the contact himself. So, no penalty and no yellow card either for the centre-half. That became even more significant when Sparta picked their way downfield to equalise. A first home goal for Giva Ezekiel in what was the final game of his loan from Feyenoord. And just a second in senior football for the 20-year-old. Wonder saver, even if it did potentially hand their great rivals Ajax the title. A draw for PSV would not be good enough if Ajax beat FC Twente. It led to some visiting nerves, but they didn't take long to respond. And as so often in the past, it was their captain, Luc de Jong, to stand up and deliver. He may not have been as prolific as in previous campaigns, and he's nowhere near the 29 goals he plundered last time out, but this was his 18th in all competitions and a 14th in the Eredivisie. Sparta couldn't get the ball back, allowing PSV to patiently build up, and then they left him with too much space. More good work from Perisic, Ismail Zaibari and Noah Lang to create it, even if Sparta did ask the questions here over a potential foul on Van Aanholt from Zaibari. but things didn't feel secure until they got a third goal 7 minutes from the end. De Jong playing his part by keeping the ball in, whose Till might not have been looking for Tillman when he nodded the ball down, but it was the US midfielder who reacted quickest. And that really did kick off the party right in front of the away fans. Having been 9 points behind Ajax with 5 games to go, they delivered one of the greatest title comebacks in recent Eredivisie history. And at 61, Bos became the oldest coach to lead a club to the Eredivisie title. Their 26th in all, it was a 12th for the club this century. Almost half of those that have been awarded. 3 more than Ajax. For many, it felt more significant than the previous one, given how far away it had seemed only last month. They also set a new club record for goals in all competitions, 146 with 103 in the league. The trophy was awarded to them by Philippe Cocu, a man who won it 4 times as a PSV player and then went on to coach them to 3 more titles. Many have lauded them as the best footballing side in the division, and the players felt this was just reward for their attacking approach, regardless of their opponents. So, whatever Ajax did in the end, it wouldn't have changed the outcome. And their rotten 4-game run of 2 draws and 2 defeats at the most crucial time of the season ended up costing them. Particularly Groningen's 99th minute equaliser 4 days before this, which stopped them being the ones going into the final day on top. So, they began against FC Twente, knowing they had to win and hoped Sparta could do them a favour. Francesco Farioli said he believed they could do it, that there could still be another unexpected twist. They began well. Kenneth Taylor flicking this over just inside 5 minutes. But Twente responded in kind with a header from Ricky van Wolfswinkel. They already had a home tie secured in the Conference League playoff semis, but could finish 5th rather than 6th if they won this and RZ lost. Yuri Dehia was making his first start since re-signing for Ajax from Twente in January. The midfielder picked up an ankle injury on his debut, which cost him almost 3 months on the sidelines, but he was the one winning another free kick in a similar position. And this time, it ended up being converted. Skipper Jordan Henderson popping up with his first goal for the club on the final day. One which could have been a hugely significant one, but for previous results. For now, though, it had the fans right around the stadium dreaming. And also quickly checking what was going on in Rotterdam. It wasn't just the fans either. In the director's box, the Ajax CEO Menno Helen was keeping tabs on PSV too. They closed out the half on top, but without extending the lead. Helped by some nervy defending from the visitors. Mees Hilgers, the one giving up possession cheaply. Brian Brobby picked out Steven Berghuis, whose right foot isn't as impressive as his left. Ajax were doing their bit, but they still needed a favour from their old boss Maurice Stijn. And it looked like it was coming when Sparta equalised in Rotterdam, sparking celebration all around the Jan Cruyff Arena. Most in the executive seats tried to remain calm, while below them, the belief was spreading. It wasn't long before Farioli was switching things up, Brobby making way for Wout Weghorst. Lucas Rosa's third league start for the club came to an end as Joti Mokio came on. The belief only grew when Ajax doubled their lead. Weghorst striking less than 2 minutes after entering the game. Berghuis recycling the ball and finding him in space for a crisp half volley. The home fans now as optimistic as they'd been in weeks, with the score still at 1-1 in PSV's game. However, it looked a tight offside decision, so there would then be a lengthy wait. Referee Danny Michele relaying the information from the Dutch FA headquarters, which seemed to centre at first on Owen Wijndal rather than Henderson, who provided the cross. The fullback was indeed offside, but then so fractionally was Henderson, about a toenail's length, with the edge of his boot crossing the blue line. So it remained 1-0 and PSV went back ahead in Rotterdam, word of which quietened down the atmosphere considerably. Meanwhile, Twente carried on containing and offered the odd threat, but nothing significant. Things looked a little more promising for the visitors when Dan Rots managed to get free down the right. Rare space indeed, and he cut the ball back for Michel Flop. But the midfielder couldn't keep it down. It would have been his third in a row. Results elsewhere were going against them too, and as it turned out, even a win wouldn't have moved them from 6th place. Once news of PSV's third filtered through, it was as though the air was sucked out of the stadium. Realisation setting in, there would be no final rescue package from Sparta. They'd had it in their own hands and not been able to deliver. Defeats at Utrecht and home to NAC, coupled with draws at Sparta and Groningen, had done for them. Victory in just one of those would have made the difference. They did seal the win, with Weghorst getting his reward in the final seconds of normal time. The 10th league goal of the season, the most he's managed since 2021, but although the fans greeted it, there was barely a celebration on the field. Everyone already knew what was going on in Rotterdam. A dispiriting end to the season, which had promised so much for so long. There were tears at the final whistle from players and fans alike. Many did stay behind to thank the squad for their efforts. But Weghorst also felt that he was unduly singled out for attention once again by the cameras while he was upset, something that's bothered him all season, and he let his emotions get the better of him. Farioli could have become the youngest coach ever to win the Eredivisie. Instead, it proved his last game in charge. A day later, he announced his decision to leave. Robin van Persie's returned ahead, and Veen didn't get off to the best of starts. His Feyenoord side fell behind inside 4 minutes, when Hristijan Petrov nodded in his first goal in Dutch football. The Bulgarian defender had had a few moments like this in midweek during their 1-0 defeat at Go Ahead Eagles, but he wasn't able to convert them. Now the January signing from CSKA Sofia had the chance to celebrate with the home fans, and it set them on the path to potentially complete a remarkable season at home. While they've endured an historically bad season on the road with just 2 away wins in the league, Ajax are the only visiting side to have won here, but the bright start was overshadowed by a nasty injury to keeper Andries Noppert, who looked to have been knocked out after colliding with Petrov. Help was swiftly on the way, but there was no way he'd be continuing. Petrov also received treatment, having been focused on tracking the run of Ayase Ueda and not where his goalkeeper was. Noppert had regained his place after Van Persie's departure. Here he was replaced by the former number 1, Mickey van der Hart. At the other end, Van Persie had handed another Bulgarian, Plamen Andreev, his debut. A summer signing from Levski Sofia. He'd spent most of the season on the bench, deputising for Timon Wernenroth. He was almost beaten again before the 20-minute mark as Heerenveen looked to consolidate the lead. David Hansko clearing off the line from Milos Lukovic. Levi Spence then finding his path to goal blocked off. This could well have been the last game for Hatsko, who has a number of clubs after him. As the home side looked to keep on the pressure, the players were alerted to an incident in the stand. At first it seemed the fans were throwing cups onto the field, but that was to attract attention to a medical emergency. Captain Luc Brouwers came across and relayed the message. In the event, there were actually two situations going on at the same time, both of which required medical attention. Once play got back underway, Heerenveen picked up where they'd left off and established a platform in the game via a penalty. Sam Kersten's long ball pitted Lukovic against Gernot Trauner, whose attempts to stop him were clumsy and ineffective. Eventually, the Serb did tumble over, but initially nothing was given. Referee Jeroen Manschrot left it alone until the VAR got in touch. Only then did the penalty check come, and an unsurprising decision to eventually award the spot kick. Van Persie had been pretty disappointed by how his side competed in their duels, and this was a good example. Lukovic stepped up, sending the new man the wrong way. And as Feyenoord's coach already knew from his time in charge here, when they get ahead at home, they're hard to overhaul. Third goal for the teenage striker, but his first in 2.5 months. For the remainder of the half, Ueda was the only one to threaten to eat into the lead, getting away from Petrov, finding Van der Hart in good form. He's not yet into double figures, but ended the season with 9 goals, 7 of them in the league. Van Persie's only half-time change was to bring on 19-year-old winger Aymen Sliti for Anis Haj Musa, but it was the man on the other side, Igor Pasha, who had their first opportunity after the break. The top scorer racing away, but in trying to be unselfish, the chance was gone. He finished on 14 goals. A long way behind the Eridivisie's Golden Boot winner Sem Stein. An even better chance came the way of Lukovic just before the hour, a player given his debut by Van Persie after January's loan from Strasbourg. He managed 4 appearances and a goal before Van Persie departed, then missed a penalty in the first game after he left. This should have gone in, something his coach, Robin Veltman, felt too. But he was equally indebted to his keeper, who performed well on his first appearance in 3 months, keeping out this from Paschal after he was set up by Sliti. A win for Heerenveen, and they'd be assured of a finish in either 8th or 9th, one of the final 2 Conference League playoff slots. They managed the game well in the last 10 minutes and didn't look under pressure. Feyenoord seemed to have run out of steam after a taxing season, having already sewn up 3rd place. There were opportunities on the counter for the home side. Serbian Niculescu looking to make his mark after just coming on, but instead Andreev impressed with his tackling and got away with a race out of goal after Smuts took too long to try and beat him. They may not have been able to add a 3rd, but after back-to-back defeats coming into the final day, Heerenveen did give themselves a boost going into the playoffs. It also made it 4 home league wins in a row for the first time in over 10 years. They'll travel away to AZ this coming Thursday, a side they beat in March, but who also inflicted a 9-1 defeat on them when Van Persie was in charge back in September. Fortuna Sittard fans continued their protest against the club management after last week's revelations. They couldn't get a UEFA licence, so wouldn't be competing in the European playoffs. They were another side looking for a top half finish, but they needed a 3-goal victory to overhaul Heerenveen. That appeared unlikely against Utrecht, who'd secured 4th and were 23 points better off. But they did have early chances, including this for midfielder Edouard Michou, whose only goal for the club came in their previous meeting with these opponents in December. That had ended in a remarkable 5-2 win for them in Utrecht, so it wasn't entirely impossible. Victor Jensen also had to clear one off the line from the resulting corner, as Fortuna made a strong start. Rodrigo Huth, the man this time coming close. Utrecht needed just a point to set a new club record for one season, and after riding out the early storm, they nearly scored first themselves. Sufyan El Karouani smacking his first effort off the post as he looked to sign off with a goal. He was one of the players who might well have been playing his last game for them, with offers in the pipeline. Unconvincing defending from Sid van Otterloo. Another player, Sebastian Haller, remained on the bench, having signed off in their final home game last week before he returns to Borussia Dortmund. The game had its moments, but not many. Jasper Dalhaus's run here had the crowd on their feet, and some would expect him, but the promise wasn't delivered as his final ball eluded those surging forward. Aerial balls into the box were Fortuna's most likely source of success, and though they had the better of the first period, it did end goalless. Dalhaus, this time, did set up a half chance for Ezequiel Boulada. He was playing his final game before returning to parent club final. He also then set up Huth from the resulting corner. A fine stop from Michael Brouwer, a highlight for Utrecht. Croatian under-21 international Luka Tunjic unable to follow up and grab himself a second goal. Danny Baus's side were as robust as ever in the one-on-one duels, but fairly blunt in the final third. Only 3 of the bottom 4 have fewer goals than them. Half-time saw a couple of changes from Utrecht. Striker Noah Ohio and defender Kolbein Finson replacing David Min and Nick Westerlund. And it was Ohio that created Utrecht's best chance so far, shortly after the restart. Spinning and then laying it on for the pacey Johan Kathleen, who didn't have the finish to go with his acceleration. He had found the net in December's last meeting, as had Dalhaus and Boulada as well as Tunjic. He was the one taking on the next from the edge of the box. Fortuna looking to counter-attack. Christopher Peterson leading the initial charge. Neither coach was particularly effusive about their side's performance following this, both keen to file it away and prepare for next season. For Utrecht, that means Europa League qualifiers and integrating new players, including David Vandenberg from Pek Zwolle, Mike Erdhausen from Sparta, and potentially Danny de Wit, the former AZ midfielder, who's leaving Bochum after their relegation from the Bundesliga. Fortuna will have to assess their tricky financial situation. But as well as Boulada, they'll also lose Bojan Radulovic, who's on loan from Huddersfield. Utrecht said goodbye to Paxton Aronson, who was a late sub before he returns to Frankfurt, and the promise of Champions League football, while Jens Toornstra's future's up in the air. The veteran midfielder's out of contract and waiting to hear if he'll get a new one. As the final 15 minutes ticked round, it was becoming a tired conclusion to the game on a warm afternoon. Utrecht happy to soak up what little pressure Fortuna could apply and then break with the pace of Ohio and now substitute Adrian Blake, who'd replaced Kathleen. Ohio had managed 5 goals, but only 1 in 2025. And the save of the game from Matthijs Brandenhorst kept this out. Matthijs Diden, who made just his 4th start, hadn't yet found the net since joining from second-tier Roda JC. He came close, though, perhaps as close as he has all season. Ohio certainly added some zip, but there were very few late moments of entertainment. He was involved in most of them at this end, but nothing gave the home keeper another scare. The point was a creditable one for Baus's men, but it meant they actually dropped to 11th. A disappointment even though they wouldn't have been able to compete in the playoffs. Kaisierhaus had the last chance to win it, and actually came mighty close too, right at the end of stoppage time. The fans did reserve their praise for the players and the coaching staff at the end for giving them, in their words, the chance to dream. But those dreams will have to wait for at least another year and, potentially, a very different looking squad. With Twente losing, AZ could not be knocked off 5th place, but with every game kicking off at the same time, they didn't know that as they lined up against Almere City. The league's bottom side had already been relegated last week and were playing for pride with a sense of freedom from stress too. Junior Cadil letting fly with the first ever. Martin's home side also began their season against these same opponents, winning by 1-0. And they'd never lost in 4 previous meetings, winning 3 and conceding just once. That became twice when Thomas Robinet was afforded too much space on the edge of their penalty area. The Frenchman notching just his 2nd goal, and good work here from Cadil to chase what seemed a lost cause. As a side, it was only their 23rd goal, meaning they were still one short of Sem Stein's individual total, the Golden Boot winner. AZ did have the chance to hit straight back when Ernest Poku found the same kind of space, crossing for Sven Meinens, their captain, to pop one over. Their club captain, Jordi Klasi, was still injured and they've missed his tenacity and his ball-winning ability in midfield. Another who can provide that for Almere City in midfield, as well as an experienced head and an aptitude for set pieces, is Tom Hay, who began in AZ's academy and had 2 seasons in the first team before leaving in 2016. He was the one chasing back and then tangling with Denso Cassius in a bad-tempered end to the half. One which saw the AZ fullback push on and have a pop at goal too. And then saw the referee Ingmar Ostrom surrounded. Neither side made changes at half-time, but AZ did improve, and they handled their opponent's physical approach much better. Ruben von Bommel also nearly caught out keeper Nordenbach. The winger was also the one who set up their equaliser shortly after the hour for David Müller-Wurth, their Norwegian left-back. He made it 3 goals for the season, his best ever tally. The shot also took a little nick on the way through, which didn't help the goalkeeper either. They'd actually kept 7 clean sheets this season, but still had the 2nd worst defence behind RKC. And this was the 64th goal that they'd let in. With a quarter of the game to go, AZ decided to turn up the heat and had an intense attacking spell, which threatened to win them the game, and certainly kept Bakker busy. Poku had the first chance from the breakaway, which Cadil then failed to clear. So, Kees Smit intervened and helped to create a follow-up effort for Van Bommel. That saw another smart stop from Bakker, as he did his bit to earn them something from the game. Before substitute Ibrahim Sadiq, who got the only goal in the first meeting, returned the ball a little too high. With 10 minutes to go, Bakker then signed off, allowing a debut for backup keeper Jonas Wendlinger, an Austrian signed last summer from SV Ried. Apart from this, their number one had played every minute all season. Dropping points didn't matter too much in the end for AZ, and the fact that no one else found the net will largely be forgotten in a game which itself won't live too long in the memory. As the highest ranked side in the playoffs, AZ will have a home semi-final and a home final if they make it past Heerenveen this week. Sadiq firing in one last effort. Meanwhile, Cornelius Hansen's fancy footwork almost earned Almere a final flourish. The winger did win a free kick, which then meant that Hay could look to cap his return to Alkmaar with a goal. No one had had more attempts without scoring than him so far. However, it wasn't to be. Another close one, but no goal, and he now has a decision to make about whether to stay and play in the second tier or seek a new challenge. Jeroen Rijsdijk's men also bade farewell to the Eredivisie as the first side since 2005 to have neither conceded a penalty nor been awarded one. And their goal difference meant they'd finished bottom, regardless of what the side just above them, RKC, did in their final game with go-ahead Eagles. Groningen were another side hoping for a top-half finish and a place in the Conference League playoffs, and they came into this on a high after ruining Ajax's chances of the title with a 99th minute equaliser in midweek. Pek Zwolle were on a high with just one defeat in 8. This was coach Johnny Jansen's farewell after 2 years in charge, and they actually had an outside chance of crashing the playoffs, but they needed Heerenveen to lose for that to work out. It turned out after, it was also a farewell for one of his midfielders, Anwar El Azouzi, who will join Austria Vienna, but he couldn't sign off with a goal that would have been just his second for the club. Nor could Jörg Schroeders, a left-footed Groningen winger with a little bit of a swagger about him, who'd scored 5 times in his first Eredivisie season, aged just 20. The same tally that he got in last season's promotion campaign. Given his pace, there have also been a few comparisons with a previous and world-famous son of the city, Arjen Robben, who'll be coaching the club's under-14 side next season. With their playmaker Luciano Valente suspended, there was a first start since early January for Romana Postema, who'd scored 18 times last season but has only got 1 so far this campaign. He came close here, but ultimately didn't trouble Jasper Schendelaar, who was hoping to sign off with a clean sheet. Groningen were also missing their number 1 keeper, Etienne Vassen, so Hidde Jurius filled in, making a second appearance in the league and a first since October. His hopes of a clean sheet were ended just before half-time. Yunus Namli scoring for the 4th game in a row. An impressive run given the fact he hadn't scored at all before the start of the month. They benefited from a misplaced pass and then a deflection in the first place, but what followed was certainly great interplay and movement off the ball. Good way to finish the half for the home side. However, not everybody enjoyed it. Jurius is an experienced keeper who was number 1 last season before Vassen's arrival, and he was also PSV Eindhoven's backup in the 2016-2017 season. He may not have played much, but he's clearly kept himself sharp and did well to deal with this one from Dylan and Bale. Groningen had scored 12 goals in their last 3 home games, but away they'd managed just 3 in 4 matches since March's international break. And breaking through here wasn't easy. Every time Postema tried, he kept on hitting a wall, called Schendelaar. The keeper also proved his worth as a provider soon after. After claiming this corner, he bowled it out straight away, and in doing so, earned himself an assist. And Bayo's pace was the key here, as he burned away from defenders and still had enough left to slot the ball in. kudos to him, but just as much to the goalkeeper, who's done this kind of thing before, spotting a teammate with clear ground ahead of him and registering an assist. Given the visitors' previous troubles in front of goal, it seemed unlikely they'd come back from here. And so it proved. The game didn't die down though. Ryan Thomas and Stajaresic both booked for an altercation over a free kick. One that the Zwolle midfielder wanted to take quickly. Referee Baz Nijhuis just let things play out before finally getting the cards in. The one potential moment of magic for the Northerners came shortly after when Tom van Bergen smacked an effort off the bar. The scorer against Ajax, and in their previous home game before that too, against RKC. But nothing for him here. Namli departed in what looked very much like a farewell with 10 minutes to go. It was also a farewell for Davy Vandenberg, who is leaving to rejoin Utrecht. There might have been more for them, but for another strike of the woodwork, Odysseus Villanas on the end of more intricate work and grazing the bar. But Heerenveen's win over Feyenoord put paid to any playoff hopes. A fine way to end the season though, winning 3 of the last 4 to finish in 10th. 2 points and 3 places above their opponents. Janssen can bow out after a job well done. Groningen's fans told their team they've put the club back on the map again after promotion and a decent cup run. NAC were also finishing the season strongly and sat just 2 points ahead of Zwolle. They had things in their own hands, knowing a win over Heracles would give them a playoff place. Heracles, like Zwolle, needed other results to go their way, and ultimately they didn't. But they did compete well in the game, which took a while to catch light, but could have had an opening goal here. Thomas Bruns heading over when well placed. NAC coach Roy Meyer was hoping to extend his stay at the club by at least a couple more games, having decided to step down after the season. Dick Schroeder is the man lined up to take his place in the summer, his first job in Dutch football since leaving Zwolle in 2023 to take over that Spanish side, Castellon. After goals in his last 2 games, NAC right back Brian Pereira has developed a taste for attacking. The Frenchman came close here too, linking up with Son Johansson, but thwarted by Fabien de Keyser. At the other end, the hosts proceeded to hit both posts in a matter of seconds. Suf Podgoranu with a header, and then Mats Rots with a shot. But neither side did enough, although the defenders behind the ball here did just about enough. And then a minute before the break, it seemed that NAC had done enough. Sami Waster squeezing the ball in from a corner after Philippe Sandler had won a header to knock it down. So far, so good for the visitors, who just about shaded it before their woodwork was rattled. However, the VAR was already looking at Sandler's leap and deciding that his arm was involved. Cue a minute-long check, which established that it was indeed handball, and so the half ended goalless. It didn't remain that way for long though. Heracles came out of the blocks quickly and snatched the lead inside 90 seconds. Juha Talviti staying strong, Sam Schreperman following up in the right place. A first Eredivisie goal for him in 45 top-flight matches. And only a third ever, 2 of those have now come against NAC. He also got the only goal in December's cup meeting. Heracles also won the previous league outing this season, 2-1 in Nijmegen in September. But it was NEC that responded best to the goal, and Hansen hit back quickly, restoring parity 10 minutes into the half thanks to Vito van Kooij's run. A sixth goal for the winger, matching last season's best ever tally, and it was all to play for now. Coming in on the back of back-to-back 3-0 wins, NEC were probably the favourites to use that momentum and go on and win it. But they did it without Hansen, who came off shortly after, Bashar Ünal taking his place. And it was the Turkish winger who scampered away soon afterwards to complete the comeback. A fine run and a well-controlled finish too, given he was at full speed. An inspired change from his coach. The celebration went on to involve everybody on the touchline. Great pace to take him away from Damon Mirani, the trailing defender. As a result, the final 20 minutes became a little more stretched and end-to-end as the home side employed the same kind of strategy. Substitute Mario Engels was thrown on for his own pace. He also used it well when an NEC move broke down. Mees Hoedemakers losing the ball. But that then provided an opportunity for Ivan Marquez to get the crowd going. And he took it. Sliding in and timing it perfectly. If he hadn't have done it, would have been a penalty. The Spaniard certainly made the most of it. He may not have got a goal himself, but Weisse was arguably the man of the match, with some tireless running and some great approach play. He also set up their last chance for another sub, defender Lefteris Lidatsis, whose fresh legs helped him to keep up. No first goal, though, for the Greek in his last outing before going back to PAOK. The fans knew what was coming by now, as they'd all had their ears across other games. And even though they'll be away from home, they have the momentum as they face FC Twente in the playoffs, looking for revenge, having lost both games with them earlier in the season. Heracles finished 14th, but they have been safe for some time. There was a Brabant derby in Breda to finish the season. The side just above the relegation zone hosting the one just below the dotted line. The home side safe, Willem II already knew they'd be contesting a relegation playoff. The least they could do was give their fans a boost by beating their arch rivals, but it was an even start, with NAC taking aim first through their player of the season, Leo Zauer. The winger that coach Karl Hofkens won't be able to call on next season as he's heading back to Feyenoord. The Belgians debating whether to make a serious offer for veteran Utrecht midfielder Jens Toornstra, who's out of contract and has had talks with him and the club. He could provide much-needed ammunition for Elias Omarsson, who was joint top scorer at this point along with Sauer on 7 goals. Goals have been the visitors' Achilles heel all season. They've scored the second fewest in the division and couldn't take the chances that would have made the difference here. Emilio Kerr fluffing his when well placed. And moments later they were behind as Sauer did what he's done so well. Carried the ball deep into opposition territory and laid on a goal. It didn't go in for Dominik Januszek, but Omarsson was in the right place to force home the rebound and move on to 8 goals. An unfortunate one for the keeper Thomas Didion Erdl, one of 5 players in the Eredivisie who has played every single minute. The first goal since the end of January for the Icelander. Another one would have made life really tricky for the visitors, and this time Omarsson turned provider to try and make it. Clint Leemans nearly scored it too, but this time Willem II's French goalkeeper stood up just long enough. However, they did pull level just before half-time. One of their players this time was quickest to react to a rebound. Rafael Bahunek, prodding home after Tommy Sandiego hit the bar. Not for him, the big derby celebration. It was a much more focused and a reserved reaction from the Austrian defender. So it was all to play for in the second half. Willem II were the only ones making a change at the break, a defensive one with Sandiego going off. But going forward, they were the brighter, at least initially. Kehrer on the end of this from Nick Dordeman. Amin Lashkar popped up next as they created good chances, but once again showed why they haven't scored enough goals this season. At the other end, Boy Kemper and Leo Greimel both went up for this. Greimel getting the flick, but not what they needed. Both Sauer and Greimel had been on target in the first derby of the season, which ended 2-2 back in November. The Slovakian teenager couldn't sign off with a goal, or indeed an assist, as his efforts here were thwarted by Didion Erdl, who has at least been a consistent and reliable presence in a season of 2 halves for the Tilburgers. A great first half of the campaign as they largely punched above their weight, but they've dropped like a stone since Christmas. Remarkably, this didn't go in or result in a penalty. A close-range header from Kamal Zoa that hit the defender and fell kindly. But there was, eventually, a yellow card for Sana Fernandez, who dived in. The incident in the penalty area was then checked and cleared by the VAR and referee Sander van der Eyck. A nervy last 10 minutes followed. Both sides do want this to carry on being a top-flight derby. This was the first season since the 2018-2019 campaign that had been the case. But it will depend on how Willem II get on. They face a 2-legged tie with Dordrecht this coming Wednesday and Saturday to try and preserve their top-flight status. Boris Lambert had their last chance to win it. No real reaction from interim coach Christoph Albrecht. Daniel Belica with the save. In a frantic 4 minutes of stoppage time, it was the host that had more time on the ball, but a wild swipe or two from Zoa was the best that they could manage. Survival, however it happened, was the goal for the season, and the fact they had that before the final day was a bonus. Like their opponents, they also had a much better first half of the campaign, but they did get things together in time to save themselves. There was time for one final shot from Jesse Bosch before the final whistle blew. A wayward one, but a well-constructed move at the very least. And maybe the visitors can take heart from some aspects of this performance. Dordrecht finished 5th in this season's second division, 6 points off an automatic promotion place, but they have already beaten De Graafschap in the first round of their playoff system to earn a shot at Willem II. And the lower division side has had a good record in these end-of-season shootouts. That isn't something that Hufkens has to worry about, but he is already planning for next season. And he can do so with more certainty than his opponents. We end with one of the highest scoring games of the season, never mind just this final round. EKC were all but a mathematical miracle away from relegation. Go Ahead Eagles had struggled to look the same side since they'd sewn up 7th and won the Dutch Cup, but they did take the lead thanks to Finn Stokkers, who prodded it in to kick off what could easily have been a rout in Varberg. just a third goal for the former AKC man, who also scored one of his others against them in August. The home response wasn't long in coming, through one of their former Ajax youngsters, Richard Margaret, who'd left the crossbar rattling with a volley 5 minutes later. Expertly guided goalwards, however, a little too much on it from a player who'd scored just once in the last 3 months in their previous home game. That ended in a win over Heerenveen, which gave them brief hope of staying up. Then, last week's 2-0 loss at Feyenoord all but sealed the deal, along with the 6-1 and 4-0 defeats they suffered the weeks before that. And if this next one from Mati Sohail had gone in, perhaps there would have been a different complexion on this day too. Margaret was the one making things happen for the home side in the early stages, putting himself in the shot window perhaps, keeping this in play and nearly getting the luck. Off the head of Luka Plogman and away. More often than not, those go in instead. But there would be no addition to his 5 goals here. However, having had that scare, Plogman shot his side in the foot a little bit with his next actions. Given the chance to end the season with Jari de Bus arrested, the Eagles' previous number 1 in the first half of the campaign gifted the ball to Tim van der Loon, who took advantage to make it 1-1 at half-time. Just a second Eredivisie goal for the midfielder, but it was the springboard that his side badly needed. And early in the second half, they took the lead for the first time, something that hasn't happened quite enough this season. Poor marking saw Mitchell Kramer stroll through to tap it in, past some statuesque defending. Margaret laying it on. His hard work earning him an assist, at least. But it wasn't until midway through the half that they accelerated a little more against an Eagles side that had won just one of their previous 7 league games. But such was their lead over sides in 8th and 9th, they were never in danger of dropping down the table, although they could conceivably have climbed to 6th. AKC had no such luxury, and only managed to put in this kind of display when it was too late. Yasin Ukili slotting in this one. But there wasn't really much motivation to celebrate. Then, inside the final 20 minutes, their opponents woke up and hit back. Jakob Brömer's been easing his way back to fitness via sub-appearances and hasn't started in 3 months, but he's had a little longer each week, and here he got a first goal since his last start in mid-February, when he'd scored the winner against Sparta. His 10th, and back then he was looking their best player, so they've done well to thrive without him. 4 minutes later, came another header and another goal. AKC reverting to type and not defending well at all. Evert Lindhorst, who set up the last one, now scoring the next, the second in a week after his equaliser in the IJssel derby with Petsvolle. And they seem to be the ones with the momentum now. However, the 4th goal in 11 minutes went AKC's way. A harsh one, as it turned out. A shot from Chris Lokesa striking the arm of Lindhorst, who had it tucked in by his side, but the referee still gave a penalty, much to their bemusement. Up stepped Mo Ihatara to drill his final goal in for the club. Their coach Henk Fraser had offered him a lifeline, a way back into football when he'd lost his way and was on the verge, seemingly, of quitting. He announced after this he's leaving to try take the next step in his rehabilitation. The lead that they'd worked hard to win back was nearly handed back by Kevin Falida's actions. A little too nonchalant, he gifted the ball away and was bailed out by his keeper Max Spenkeling, denying 17-year-old Ofusu Poake a goal in his senior debut. Instead, Ukili had the last word with a breakaway goal that sent the fans home happier than when they'd arrived. We haven't seen many games like this over the last 9 months. There have been 7 home wins in all, 5 in the league and 2 in the Dutch Cup, including the last 2 in a row. Remarkably, that wasn't even the end of the chances, with Boakye sent through again, this time hitting the bar. A smart debut in a memorable game. Ekese going down fighting, but with Fraser leaving, along with a host of players, it's now a rebuilding job for whoever comes in. Hatton left one fan very, very happy with a pair of boots. So there were 25 goals in the final round, almost a quarter of those coming in that last game in Waalwijk. Ajax's win wasn't enough to stop PSV grabbing the title, while Heerenveen and NEC took the last two playoff slots. And Willem II will contest the relegation playoff as Almere City and RKC went down. Ajax are also looking for a new coach after Francesco Farioli's resignation. PSV, again, will be the ones to beat next season. We'll be back soon with a review of an eventful campaign. Until then, from me, Jonathan Beck, it's goodbye.